here are some variations you can play with when you're working with extended child's pose. So firstly, let me just show what extended child's pose traditionally looks like. So you can start from your hands and knees, and the knees become a little wider than the hips, and in general the toes come closer together. And then you start to move back through your hips, bringing the hips back towards the heels, and the arms can extend forward as the head releases down. This is an excellent pose to help quiet the mind and stretch out some of the muscles around the hips and the shoulders. But it can be a little tricky to do if you have limitation in either the knees or the back or the neck or the shoulders. So a couple of options that you can work with here. If you find that you're going into the pose and your hips only make it back to here before you start to feel strain or pain, then this is where you stay. Right? So we don't want to push back further into increasing more pain. Now, this may not be a very restful place for you. So what you can do then, if you want to make it a little bit more restful, is to build a little bit of height for the support of your head. So I have here a yoga block, and I also have a folded blanket. Now, depending on how far forward your head can go, that will determine how much height you put under your head, of course. So if I have a block and then a folded blanket here, and then I start with this prop setup close to being under my face, maybe a little bit more towards the chest, and then take the hands to the floor, and I go back, and I'm like, whoop, this is as far as I'm able to go. This is fine. Then I just rest my head, my forehead, down onto the props, letting the elbows slide back and letting the elbows rest down on the floor as well. So this can be a lovely setup for resting in child's pose when there's limitation through the knees or the hips. Another option is to take a rolled blanket. So if I take my rectangle shaped blanket and roll it up, it doesn't have to be super tight, and place it behind the backs of my knees. Same setup here as I come into all fours. Bring the knees a little bit wider and the feet a little closer together, and then I might be able to go back and rest my buttocks back down towards the feet. All right, so this can also be a way to keep some space in the knee joint. And again, if you're still needing some support under the head, you can bring a block or build up some height, maybe a couple of pillows for head support here. Now, third option, sometimes when we have the blanket behind the knees and we just find that when I sit back, oh my goodness, my ankles and my feet are just so tight that I'm not able to be comfortable here whatsoever. So then, what we would want to do, and I'm just going to go grab another blanket from my props. So we would take 2 blankets, or you could use a bath towel. So you keep the one in the roll, it goes behind the knees. The other one, you can roll or fold gently and place that at the front of the ankles. So as you're coming into the position, I have the front of my ankles on top of this roll. I take the other roll, place it behind the knees, and then same position. I open the knees up a little bit, bring the feet a little closer together, hands come to the floor, and then I start to sit back. Okay, so now I have some support for my ankles and some support for the knees. Now again, as you're coming into this position, it might not be comfortable just to drop your head down on the floor. You can use, again, your support under your head. Okay, so that is another way to come into extended child's pose. The last variation I'll show you is you need quite a few props for this one. But what you would do is you could have the blanket behind your knees, the blanket under the ankles, and then another blanket for the front of your thighs. So I would take my position for my ankles over top of the roll. Take the blanket behind the knees, snug it up there to the crease of the knees, and then this blanket here, third blanket, would stay folded, and I place it right at the top of the legs, right at the folded edge, right where the leg crease meets the pelvis. So then I keep the fold there as I sit back, okay, sitting back, and now I've got this blanket here on my thighs, and then I come forward. So the blanket now provides a little bit of space between my belly and my thighs, which can feel nice for some. Again, you can bring the block or other support under your head. And staying in child's pose as long as you like, as long as feels comfortable in your body and your mind. You can also take a variation where you walk your arms off to one side. Now the pelvis and the legs stay in the center, and the movement comes through the torso and the arms. So you're adding a little bit of a side stretch into this position. And then you would walk over, take the torso and the arms and the head off to the left. You still have a nice sense of grounding through the lower body. Easy breathing. Make your way back into the middle. And then you can come up. Take your props away. And it might be nice to just briefly lie on your back. To notice the effects of your practice. And then when you feel ready, you can roll to one side and move on with the rest of your day. Enjoy exploring extended child's pose.